This isn't really gonna work because they're gonna be like, "Why is they talking?" They're like trying to get the random jumbly thing at the beginning. We are.
Of course we are.
You fake it till you make it. That's what I say.
We're just shaking up a bottle with crap in it, and hopefully lightning it just appears.
That's just the theme.
That's a weird mixture of two metaphors there.
I know.
Because you have lightning in a bottle, and then you added poo to it for some reason. I don't understand.
Poo? I didn't say poo.
I heard poo.
I did not say poo.
I heard poo.
I avoid fecal matter at all costs. I would never say poo.
That's true.
And
pathologically,
welcome to the Filmcast.
Oh, are we start? Oh, okay, we're starting. Sorry. No, you said you had crap in a jar. Crap in a jar, and you were shaking up the crap, waiting for lightning to strike it.
Well, crap is like one of those words that can be used for anything.
So
it's not as disgusting as poo. Whatever.
And this is the Valhalla Filmcast. I'm Bryce Thompson.
You're also boring. That's what you are.
Anyways, since you just heard our discussion about poop, we'll go ahead and talk about movies, which is interesting actually, because recently we've had a streak about talking about one particular movie that was literal crap on screen, and that was Suicide Squad. So we may as well
Oh, nice segue. Awesome.
We may as well just get the bashing, just get into it, get it over with, and get on with the show.
Hey, if they announced that Eddie Redmayne was going to headline the next Suicide Squad movie, then that means, build yourself a basement because the apocalypse has come. That is the end of all things. So,
it's true.
Just for the record, I have still not seen it, so I'm going completely off your guys' judgment.
They're gonna announce that Eddie Redmayne, or that who's Daniel Radcliffe is the Joker and Eddie Redmayne is Harley Quinn. So,
and the only person that can save us is Michael Keaton. That would be it. So.
Nice.
Which would be so cool. Could you imagine that? Like, it's like some fake thing that they're doing, and like Michael Keaton just comes smashes it down as Batman, and is like, no.
Or as Birdman.
Oh,
yes,
that would be even cooler.
Even better.
That would be awesome. We need to make a movie.
Did you hear this though? Did you hear this? That Mel Gibson, they're trying to get Mel Gibson to do the second Suicide Squad movie. Trying to get
that is not his. That's not something he'd do.
I don't think it would work.
No way.
They were pitching it to him. It's not a done deal by any means, but apparently there's been meetings. That's all I've heard. There's been meetings.
Who's the main bad guy going to be? I mean,
knows?
Jesus is going to have to be like the center character or something.
Well, and also, like, how does he do a PG-13 movie? It is not in him. It does not exist in Mel Gibson's body to do anything that's PG-13.
I will literally weep tears if I find out that Mel Gibson is directing Suicide Squad 2.
Yeah, I'll be sad.
I don't care what he does as long as he does something else. They may have ruined the tank guy. What's his name? Who did the first Suicide Squad? I sound like an idiot now. He did Fury.
I don't know if they
David Ayer. They didn't ruin him, but I'm just saying I don't think you can get Mel Gibson to do something that he doesn't want to do.
No,
which is why it won't happen. He won't sign up for it. I just don't see it happening.
I still feel like he needs to do the next Mad Max, though.
I know, isn't that? Who thought of that?
That'd be so cool.
Did you think of that, Bryce? Was that you or was that Brian that thought of that?
I don't know. I'll take credit for it.
Okay, whatever that was. It wasn't me, and it was genius. That is a great idea.
I mean, how cool would that be? Oh,
that would
so
be
awesome.
Cool.
Just like all the lore and everything in it. Oh, beautiful.
And it's totally his wheelhouse. Like that action.
Oh, yeah.
R-rated, intense. Yeah.
Awesomeness. It'd be so hardcore. Oh, man.
But this one wouldn't be about feminism. This would be about Jesus. So that's why it would be. Everybody that liked the last one wouldn't like this one. It would really split the country in half. It'd be ugly.
That would be. Oh, it would just be chaos. Like, if you can think of chaos on a screen, it would be that. It'd be so amazing.
I don't know if this is like a segue that needs to happen. There's like other things we want to talk about, but our show today is about Jesus on film. and we just keep
Yeah.
skirting Jesus. So
Look forward to that.
It's meant to be. It's meant.
I
to
know. We're
We're getting religious.
Be. Anyways, we'll get back to Jesus later. But we
Yes.
wanted to talk about some of the movies we
can wait.
watched
Wait,
this week.
can I just say
Yes.
that anytime you mention Jesus without Christ after, it sounds weird, kind of, you know?
It does.
Does it?
I think it's
Like our
less
Jesus
blasphemous if
show.
we do, right?
Cody, when you texted me, we're doing our Jesus show, it just sounds like weird, right?
Who are we talking about? Are we talking about the guy down the street? Like,
when
Yeah,
you're in your head,
Jesus.
it's the Jesus
Okay.
show. Who's that?
I'm going to say a very racial statement today, and I apologize if I offend anyone, but I seriously think the fact that Jesus is like one of the most common names in the Hispanic
Yes.
culture is the greatest difference between like our two cultures, right? Like, could you imagine
Yeah.
just walking down the street and say, "Hey, Jesus, what's up?" Like, it just
If I'm
doesn't
in,
work.
Hey, if I'm in the Big Lebowski, then yes, there is a Jesus
True.
in the Big Lebowski
True.
that was put away for child molestation and likes to lick his bowling ball before he throws
Ugh.
it down the
so
alley.
a funny story about the two cultures thing. My little sister, when she first went to school, how they put their names on their desks. She walked by one of the kids in her classroom's desk, and it said Jesus on it, and she was totally confused. She was like, Jesus is in my class. This makes no sense to me. And then
Yep.
after she
What a difference an
Explain.
accent makes over a letter, right?
Well, and
Seriously.
hey, my wife, she grew up in the West, right, in Utah, Idaho, and so we moved to Virginia, and she substitute taught public school there, and she was calling roll, and there was some Hispanic kids in there, and of course, she didn't say Jesus.
that is so amazing.
That is awesome. Oh, that would be awesome.
But a big announcement coming from the Valhalla Filmcast. This is big news. There has been some discussion among the members of the Valhalla Filmcast, and there's a new show coming. More details to come, but look forward to that. Look forward to a new show coming soon.
And you don't mean like a
more
new
details.
show, like one episode. You mean like an overhaul.
No, a new podcast. A
Of the
brand
system.
new podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to be
new
blasphemous,
podcast.
but this is our Easter show, so you could say
is.
that there may be a death of something and kind
Rebirth.
of a rebirth, right?
This is
Eh?
this
Eh?
is not,
This is good.
We could never plan this out. Like this is just podcasting coming, and you are listening to it as it is developing.
That's
This
true.
is-
So imagine this: the Valhalla Filmcast Easter egg is out in the lawn, and then when you pick it up and crack it open, something new comes out, and that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
So for
And
those
then-
secular people out there you go. We'll make it into a bunny thing. So
Yes.
Nice.
So keep an eye out for that. More news about the new podcast coming soon. Stick around. And if you have any questions about it, of course, let us know. We'll answer them for you. So yeah, moving on with the show. We're also starting a new format in preparation for the new podcast. So it's going to be a little different, hopefully better. We're going to try it out. So that's why it's lots longer and different.
yeah.
So we kind of wanted to talk about some of the movies that we'd watched this week. I finally got to watch the Shining documentary, Room 237.
Oh, did you watch it? Really?
Yeah, I didn't finish it all the way. I had to go to bed. It was my bedtime. But
8:30. No matter what, Bryce just passes out. So
Yep.
whip cracking. So no, I didn't get to finish it completely, but I watched enough of it. I was almost to the end, but it's very interesting. And I think the reason I like it so much is because of the fascination with The Shining, and The Shining is just so good that it is. I mean, anything that is even related to The Shining is going to be decent.
Yeah. I
Well,
was
can I
telling
say
Bryce.
this?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was telling Bryce that, like, even if it's all hokey, you know what I mean? Which a lot of it sounds like it is. I just like seeing the images up on the screen and hearing the stories and people that are obsessed with it, way beyond my level. But I love the film, and it's fun to just kind of play with those theories and you know, kind of twirl them around.
Well,
in your
and
mind,
some of them hold more credence than others.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and from what I understand, I don't have the disc, but the commentary is done by a guy they couldn't get involved in the film who has his own theories, which a lot of people say are the best ones. So if anybody can get a hold of the commentary and listen to that,
Yeah, that is
then you
interesting.
get more stuff. I remember the one thing I remember about the documentary is one of the guys, he dissed Barry Lyndon, which was like an unforgivable sin for me.
Oh no!
It was like, we can tell
Yeah.
Kubrik was bored with his life because he made Barry Lyndon, and I was like paused Netflix and was like, F you, buddy. I love Barry Lyndon, and you're an idiot. And he was not bored, he was inspired. So that's my big
Yeah,
takeaway.
he does. He way bashed Barry Lyndon. He's like, it's the
He
most
did.
boring film.
It's because he's an
ever.
idiot. It's because he's an idiot.
It's so horrible. Yeah,
I don't know if I've
thought
met- I don't know if I've mentioned this, but my wife's taking a film class, and she's going to school, and she's writing a paper on the similarities between, I think it's Hitchcock and Kubrik. But anyway, she's writing a paper on The Shining and doing a paper on Room 237 and everything. So she's like waxing Kubrik right now. She's like really into it, and which is exciting for me, you know.
Hey, if she's like comfortable with it, we should post that up somewhere. I'd love to read that. That'd be interesting.
Like,
differences
that would be
between-
way interesting.
I'll ask her.
Bryce doesn't read, so if somebody could record it for him, he could listen to it. So.
Yeah.
We'll do an audiobook just for Bryce.
Hey, I'll listen to it. That is true, honestly. Actually, I don't really. The reading part doesn't really.
You know, I gave up reading a long time ago. If it doesn't have to do with film, like, yeah. I'd rather see it on screen than read it, I guess.
I don't have time. I don't have time to sit down and like read something.
Yep.
See,
Just
that's
like
what
blurt it out to me. In my
I
ears
read
and
as
all
much
this-
as I watch movies. Like I love it.
How do you have time to do anything,
No
Cody?
kidding,
Seriously.
Because
Holy
I don't
crap.
sleep. That's why.
Yeah, that's fair.
And my job's
yeah,
not super demanding. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Some of those theories I think are pretty interesting, and then like the ones that are just like way far out there.
The moon landing one is bullcrap. I just
Okay,
don't buy
okay.
that one at all.
Cody,
I think that one was like the.
It's the most like fun to think about,
I agree.
right,
It's
Bryce?
so- the guy
It's so
is intriguing,
stupid. It's so stupid.
but he can talk. He can talk you into it.
He
is
can-
They didn't
good.
talk me
okay.
into it.
Okay,
yeah,
but
you're Mr.
what about
cynical.
this, Cody? So you've got the Apollo 11. You've got the Apollo 11 sweater that he's wearing. He stands up like a rocket. The carpet matches the landing pad.
Stands up like a rocket? What the hell does that mean? How do you
It means
stand up like a rocket?
he slowly stands up, and if you concentrate on the rocket itself, it looks like it's like launching. Like, you know, he doesn't just stand up like a normal kid. Now, my theory is, and this is why I say you're full of crap, Cody, is I don't believe that we didn't land on the moon. Okay, I don't believe that. However, if anyone could have faked it, it's Stanley, the master, Kubrik. And I think that he knows the conspiracy theories, and so he put those things in there just to mess with them. And that's what I love about it. That's what I
agree
love
with that.
about it. And that's why I
can
like
see that
learning
happening,
about it.
though.
You know,
You're saying
The only one that has any credence to me is the Indian one, the Native American one. That one actually has some credence, I think. That one seems to make sense.
Oh, the Calumet
I can
powder.
agree. Just because of all the pictures and
A lot of
everything
imagery.
that is in there. I kind of do hate that they say that all the blood is the blood from all the Indians.
Oh, I like
know.
that. I thought that was cool.
I feel like they need something more. I don't know.
Of course, I studied sociology in college, so I'm like, yes, minorities and oppressed groups. That makes sense. So
It does. I don't know. The one that I thought was really silly was like the Nazi one.
I don't even remember the Nazi one.
Exactly. I don't really either, and I just watched it. The only thing I can remember is like his
stands up like
connection.
A rocket. I can't.
His connection with the typewriter.
I'm not saying we didn't land on the moon, Cody. You're missing my point. I'm just saying that Kubrik did that to mess with him.
I'm going to rewatch this scene where he stands. Does he shimmy a lot? Like he's getting, like...
No, he doesn't.
He almost falls over.
Like suspiciously he doesn't.
Does he
stands
fart
up
and it
straight.
causes like fire to come out like a rocket? I just don't understand what that means.
That may have happened.
Like
we don't know. You can't see gas.
I can see him putting that in there just to mess with
Yeah, that's my theory. Is he put it in to mess with them.
I am going to pull out some big guns here. This is not what the show's about at all, and somehow we're like 20 minutes in. But anyway, I read this book. It's this great book. Brian's got it too, the Stanley Kubrick Archive. And from reading that, I get this impression of Stanley Kubrick as a guy who, yes, is very, very meticulous about everything that is in his movies. But also, I don't feel like he had to have a meaning behind things that he was doing. I really don't. From a lot of the interviews and the papers and whatever else, he had themes that would go through stuff, and he wanted it to be exactly the way he wanted it to be. But I didn't get the impression that everything had to have a meaning for him. I don't think that it did, to be honest. I think that's the mistake that people make, is to think that because he's meticulous, that means everything has some hidden meaning. I don't think that's the case. I think it was meticulous, and he maybe liked the way it looked aesthetically or thematically with the story, but I don't think everything has a meaning. And I think to take that leap is a mistake in the first place. I just don't get that impression from the man. And so that whole documentary is based on the impression that everything he did had a meaning, and that meaning was deep and hidden, and I just don't buy that assumption all the way. So that's my biggest problem with it.
I get it, but an Apollo 11 sweater, seriously? Why have that in there? Why have it in there?
Why not? Kids love spaceships and NASA and whatever else.
Nah. I don't buy it. He knew. He put it in there on purpose. I'm not letting you slide on that one.
I kind of agree with Brian on the fact that I agree with you, Cody, when you're saying that not everything has a meaning behind it.
I do too.
With that particular scene and everything that's going around about it, I could see him just throwing it in there.
So, but here's my thing. But you're thinking that he thought that day, he's like, okay, wardrobe. You know what we should do? There's this obscure theory that I faked the moon landing. We ought to screw with people with this little boy's wardrobe. Can somebody make me a sweater real quick? It's an Apollo 11 sweater. Put it on him. And then we're going to have him stand up like a rocket. And that's when the little boy says, what the hell's that mean? And he says, well, you shimmy when you stand up. And you're like, this is the most outlandish reason to have this sweater other than I like the way it looks. Or I think little kids like the sweater. Or whatever else. Like, I just think it's the most far-reaching explanation for that sweater.
Yeah, but Apollo 11 is a pretty random sweater.
Very
just
random.
To be like, let's just get Apollo 11.
Everything is Native American.
I've literally never seen an Apollo NASA anything shirt ever.
Well, it was made like 20 years before you were born. Of course you haven't seen an Apollo anything shirt.
When else have you seen it in like any other movies? Never.
Well, when was the moon landing? What, 69? Something like that?
Yeah.
Am I wrong about that? 69? So, yeah, it was, like a decade after, but I don't know. I just doesn't... That's just the most random, that far-fetched way to grab for that, I think. But, whatever. I'm repeating myself. So...
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
So, any other movies that you guys watched this week?
I watched Finding Dory for the first time.
Hey, what'd you think?
What'd you think of it?
I liked it, and with my memory problem, Finding Nemo, I don't really remember. I'm like Dory, seriously. So it's very meta. Yeah, like I'm Dory in real life, and so I liked it. The family liked it. I don't know how it compares to Finding Nemo, just because I'd have to revisit that. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you like it?
So, I believe we talked about this before. But I do have one very...
Bryce thinks it's culturally insensitive, or...
I do. And I can't get over it. I feel like... I don't even remember.
The seals. It's the seals that are on the rock, and there's the one seal that's like Jeffrey? A special needs seal, and they won't let him be on the rock.
Are you kidding me? I can. When I saw that, I was like, wow.
They're not making fun of him, really, though. I mean,
yeah, they're not making fun of him, but they're being pretty rude to him, and you can tell that he's a special spirit. You can tell.
Well, when you put it that way, we have to
now
tone
we
it down,
sound
Cody.
like we're culturally
like stop
insensitive.
laughing. Seriously, I feel guilty now.
No, but I'm for reals. Like you can tell that he has like some sort of like autism or some type of special needs.
Well, yeah, and then the seals around him are mean to him, but then he wins the day. He gets the rock all to himself. And then the other mean seals get hit in the face with a giant fish.
Oh, yeah, by a fish. But still, I mean, it still doesn't... It's still like a funny
Did you want him to like
movie.
stop the movie and have like a 30-minute...
Just don't have it in there.
After-school special?
No, just don't put it in.
Okay.
I don't mean to keep
you don't
heart...
need to have rude seals being rude to another seal. That's not necessary.
I don't mean
Not
to keep
necessary.
bringing up things and harping on things, but I seriously don't know what you guys are talking about. I literally just frickin' watched this movie this week. Oh man, I have issues.
I liked the. Do you notice that like the entire cast of Modern Family was doing voices?
Yeah,
for that movie.
Uh-huh.
I don't know the names because I'm gonna sound like an idiot now. But the dad on one of the older dads on Modern Family plays the octopus. And then one of the younger dads plays the echolocation dolphin whale thing. The one that
was
goes
funny.
over and over again. That was my favorite part.
That was good. That was good.
Funny.
I remember that part.
Yeah, but for overall, I really did like Finding Nemo. Finding Dory. I mean, I thought it was good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was. I enjoyed it, and I've seen it like 8 times now because my little girl loves it. But. Thank goodness we've got her onto Moana this week. That's one I watched for the first time this week was Moana.
Is it good?
I loved it. I really liked it. I was surprised how
I
much
need to watch it.
I liked it. Because I'm not a big musical guy. Like, usually I kind of tolerate the music. And Moana was like, I really liked it because of the music. The music was just fantastic.
She did a great job. And that's an awesome song. Whoever wrote that, it was great. It was nominated, right?
Yeah.
I didn't listen to it when she sang it at the Oscars. So.
And the fact that she's like 17 and performed that live and got hit in the face with feathers and kept going and kind of amazing. So I 2 thumbs up for that one. It was really good. I guess I wasn't expecting a lot from it, and we've seen it again because my little girl's onto it now. I've seen it like 3 times now, and I don't mind it. It's really good, funny. I like the fact that it's about a girl and she didn't have to have some kind of romantic interest in her life. She just had other things going on. There wasn't a love story. My wife didn't like that. But, I really
and
liked
Dwayne
it.
Johnson did a good job.
He's
I really
funny.
like him.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah. So there you go. Disney got watched this week by the Valhalla Filmcast.
Cool.
Ooh. No blood and gore. Anyways.
What about you, Bryce? What'd you watch?
I did.
Oh, you already talked about it.
He doesn't watch a lot. He doesn't read it all, and he watches just a little. So
I forgot you started.
It's called a job that is destroying me, but I'll try to keep positive. Cody, what else did you watch this week?
I definitely wanted to bring up
Silence.
Silence. I finally saw Silence, the Martin Scorsese film with Liam Neeson, Adam Driver, Andrew Garfield, and it's the 17th century monks that go to 16th century, a long time ago, okay? And they go to Japan to spread Catholicism. They're Jesuit priests. And Catholicism is outlawed at the time. And they go to look for Liam Neeson, who was a previous priest who went to preach, and rumor has it that he's left the faith. And when they get there, there's a whole lot of testing of faith and testing of cultural ideas and what do you do and whatever else. Anyway, it's almost 3 hours long. It is there's not much of a score. It's mostly like the sounds of nature or silence. There's actually a lot of silence in the film. I thought it was remarkable. I really, really liked it. But I could tell that if you were not on its wavelength, it itself would be torture for some people. because it's almost like making somebody meditate for 3 hours. Like, it's almost movies as like a movie as a prayer or a meditation, because it's so much silence, so much time to think. It brings up all these questions of faith and gives you time to really consider them and what would I do. And so, yeah, I thought it was. I still don't. And it has not left me. I watched it. I think it was over a week ago actually now, and every day I think about it. And I don't know. One day I'm like, yeah, I think this part was amazing. The next day I'm like, no, I think that was horrible. What? I don't know. And it's just really, really giving me a lot to chew on. And you have to be ready for it. Like I said, it's a movie that requires all of your attention and all of your patience. But if you do, I think it's incredibly rewarding. So everybody's great in it, performance-wise. But it's just one of those movies that all those things kind of fall away. It's a gorgeous movie, too. I mean, it looks amazing. But all those things fall away, and you're so absorbed in this story that all I could ask myself was, did he do the right thing? Did this guy do the right thing? What would I have done? And I don't have answers to those questions. And the movie has no answers, really, either. It just has lots and lots of questions. And, yeah, I mean, get yourself in the right frame of mind, and it's going to be an incredible movie-watching experience. So I guess that's a thumbs up for me, is what you'd call that.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I've heard that it's really good, and I was kind of surprised to not see it anywhere at the Academy Awards, just from what I've heard positive.
I think it was just cinematography it was nominated for, and that was it.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. Okay. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting, just from all the positive that I heard. So
some people really, I looked it up afterwards, some people really didn't like it. They thought it was, and that's fair. I think that's a fair response to it. But I mean, for me, I thought it was, it goes really well with his other movies that are faith-based, Last Temptation of Christ and other ones. And again, he loves to dissect faith, but I like the fact that he doesn't have answers. A lot of faith-based movies rub me the wrong way because it's just like, well, these are life's problems, and here are all the answers. And it's so simple. So just do this, and then, yay, all your problems are fixed. And I think Scorsese understands that faith can be an amazing thing in somebody's life, and yet it's never a simple thing most of the time. It can be a very complex or something you have to think about and really put some work into. So, yeah, I liked it. Next.
Interesting. Yeah, and one thing that I also wanted to bring up before we move on was this new documentary series that's on Netflix, and we're going to dive deeper into this coming soon, but I just kind of want to highlight it. It's called 5 Came Back. It's about the 5 directors that went to document World War II. And I've just started watching a couple of the first episode, and I'm not really far into it, but it's just really interesting how they've gotten all of these new directors like Del Toro and Spielberg to talk about the experience that they had. And like I said, we're going to talk about this more in more depth and detail later, but it seems really interesting to me to be able to talk about that. I mean, World War II is like a very fascinating war already, and then you talk about these directors that went and filmed it. I mean, could you imagine that? Like, you're just going to film the war. Like, that's got to be pretty intimidating in itself.
Yeah, yeah. But I think also, and then we'll get more into this obviously as we watch it, but I've read Frank Capra's autobiography and then another biography about him and some other people, and the fact that they mix real war footage with stuff that they recreated as well.
Yeah, that is so
It's not all documentary. And, Frank Capra is charged with explaining to the American public why we're in World War II. I mean, that's an incredible task. I mean, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
You have to make a movie so powerful that people will be okay sending their sons to die somewhere. I mean, that's what a task. And can I say this? You have to be either like foolish or incredibly like an egomaniac to think that you can do it. And I think you can make the argument that Frank Capra was a little bit of both. And I love Frank Capra. I really do. But it takes a special person to think that they can accomplish something like that. I can't wait to watch it. I haven't watched it yet. I can't wait to talk about it. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So kind of just like a little highlight of an upcoming show is we're going to talk about this. So go watch it and then come listen to us jab about it. But yeah, we kind of hinted about what it's in the title of the show. But let's just talk about what we're going to talk about today. Jesus in movies.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Not Jesus. This is the actual. Yes.
This is the actual Son of God. It's interesting because there's lots of movies about his life that are like really serious. Like the one that I think of that's probably the most serious is, the Passion of the Christ. And then you can get to, ones that aren't so serious, that are kind of almost in a way making fun. And then you can get to like where it's just examples, or like the story of Jesus' life told, but not with him as the main character, but of something else, like kind of like a Superman type character. And I think that's interesting. You can tell that something has had an influence on the world, is if it's all scattered throughout all media. You know what I mean? Like everything is you have something based on it so much, which you can definitely say that it's all over, which I think is very interesting.
Do we want to start with Passion of the Christ? I have thoughts about Passion of the Christ. We can definitely. Let's just start from like the most serious and just work our ways until we get to.
Wait, we should end on a high note. Maybe we should start with the blasphemous stuff.
Should start with Life of Brian and go from there.
Life of Brian and go from there.
Life of Brian is interesting to me. I haven't seen Life of Brian. I've heard a lot about it.
You've seen it, Brian?
Really,
it's hilarious.
Really hilarious, yes.
I've heard it's hilarious.
Very, very hilarious.
My only interesting thing about Life of Brian is George Harrison, Beatles guitarist, mortgaged his house to help fund Life of Brian because he thought the Monty Python guys were freaking hilarious. So he's like, yes, I will help you make a movie that is awesome and hilarious. I haven't seen it. I think it would be fun to watch just for the heck of it, but who knows?
Yeah, I have certain members of my family, older members, that would probably disown me were I to watch it, but
yeah, I hesitate saying that I've watched it, but it is very funny, and I don't think that they were. They kind of poke at Christianity a little bit, but if you don't know the premise of it, it's about Brian that's born in the same time as Christ, and it starts out. I'll just tell a little bit about the opening scene where you see this star in the heavens, and the three wise men are coming, and they come into Brian's stable where he's being born, and they realize that this is not the Son of God. This is just a normal dude, and really quickly they realize that and say, we're in the wrong stable and leave. And so it's that kind of humor. You have to kind of have a thick skin. If you're very, I don't know what word to use. Yeah, devout. It is not for you. But it does poke a little at Christianity and religion in general. But, I think it's kind of an homage almost a little bit. I don't think they're ripping on Christ necessarily.
It didn't seem mean-spirited to you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But I wouldn't recommend it to anyone I know, so there you go. If you know me and you're listening to this, don't watch it. So
there you go. Plain and simple.
Wow.
So yeah, moving on.
Okay, the second funniest movie about Jesus' life, Passion of the Christ.
No, Talledega Nights. Now, he's not really portrayed in here.
Not a
but
character
he's talked
in the film.
Yeah, he's
No.
not a character,
No.
but they talk about him in great detail. We have to talk about it. Seriously, it's the funniest irreverent prayer scene in cinema.
I guess if
Is
we're
it not,
starting
guys?
from irreverent to like more, then yeah, go for it.
Oh, well, just watch it.
Yeah,
Type in Talledega Nights prayer scene, and you'll laugh your head off. And I would recommend that to any friend.
Just how they talk. Oh yeah, it's fun.
Well, and it's more making fun of like Southern American Christian culture too.
Yeah, it is.
Which I grew up in, so I can make fun of it because I'm part of it. So
So the person saying the prayer wants to pray to baby Jesus and not the adult Jesus. He wants to pray specifically to baby Jesus in his golden fleece diapers. And so when people say, "Hey, what are you doing? You're praying to the wrong Jesus," he just embellishes more and more and more and just starts, "Dear baby Jesus with your golden fleece diapers," It's just hilarious.
I think my favorite part of that whole prayer is the fact that he's contractually obligated to mention like Powerade during every prayer.
Yeah, that's great.
Man. All right,
and
so
then
any more
John C. Reilly's
comedic allusions to the life of Christ that we want to bring up before we get serious, I suppose.
Okay, I guess.
Well, there is. Have you all seen Dogma? Actually, have you all seen that?
I just bought that, but I haven't watched it yet. No.
I saw it years ago when I was in my rebellious, I don't need you to tell me what to do in high school phase. And I remember thinking it was very funny. Alan Rickman's in it. And Alan Rickman, everything he touched turned to gold. So, but it's the story of Matt Damon. If I get this wrong, I'm sorry, I haven't watched it in many years, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. Matt Damon and I think Ben Affleck both are angels. And they're fallen angels who want to work their way back into heaven. And they...
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
They want to do so by killing sinners. And hilarity ensues. And Chris Rock plays one of the apostles. And I'm trying to think who else. Alan Rickman plays an angel who comes down and does some things. And anyway, technically very blasphemous, I'm sure. But I remember finding it very, very funny when I was about 14 years old. So...
Nice.
And Jesus, I believe, makes an appearance at the end. I can't remember exactly. But for you Kevin Smith fans out there, let us know. And if that's I think for most people I hear that's one of his better films, ones that holds up even today. And I believe he grew up Catholic as well. So there's a lot of filmmakers who grew up Catholic. Mel Gibson, Martin Scorsese, Kevin Smith, who deal with their faith in different ways as they grow older. So that could be an interesting show one day, comparing Silence and Passion of the Christ and Dogma. I guess we're kind of doing that. So,
kind of.
Yeah, that's the last one I can think of that's comedic in nature.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So move on to the heavy stuff, the hardcore. Yeah. Okay, well, if we're going to talk Passion of the Christ, I think there's two B people sitting in front of me. Bryce, you're the one that, when we first started talking about movies a long time ago before we did the podcast, Passion of the Christ came up as a movie that you really liked. And
yes.
So what about that movie really worked for you?
Well, it's the most violent, bloody movie I think I've ever seen. I mean, it's just so crazy. So with Jesus and religion in general, it's just a topic that I don't talk about ever. Like, I am religious, but I don't ever talk about it with anyone ever, really. And so I don't really know how to, for one, but just to think about a movie that, even if it didn't really happen, let's just say that Jesus was a dude, and all the scripture religion thing wasn't really
factual.
Didn't really happen, factual, whatever. It's still hardcore. It gives you a view into what people did back then. And I'm not saying that, we're so much better than that. I mean, we still do crazy things. But to think about that, and I mean, you can even get into like how religion like takes a hold of people in like into like a negative way as well. They were so determined that the Christ hadn't come yet that they destroyed another human because he said he was. Like that's crazy to think about. To think like, okay, I don't even know if devout is the correct word, but I am so devout in my religion. Like me now, I couldn't see myself going that far into saying, if some dude came and said, look, I am, Christ come again, going as far as they did in one, they whipped him to death. Like, well, not to death, but like they whipped him and then they hung him on a cross. Like, that's insane. Like, one,
yeah, but it's a different world. I mean, they didn't do that to Jesus. They hung lots of people on crosses back then.
Oh, definitely. But again, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and that tells you, I guess my point is how brutal, that world was.
Well, and when Pilate presents them, I mean, they rather have the worst villainous criminal release than Christ.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that kind of puts in perspective their mindset. I mean, they were yeah.
Well, and I think
they didn't I mean, that tells you how much the religion of and the culture that they had a hold on them, that they couldn't see past, even if he wasn't like the Christ that come again, or not even come again, it came, they still couldn't just be like, oh yeah, he's crazy, let's just throw him in jail. Like, no, they had to like totally ravage him, which is crazy to me. I mean, obviously I live in a different time. I don't even know, what it's like. Like, I live way better than any of them ever could dream of. And I think that's why it was such it took a grip on me, because I've heard the story growing up my whole life, the story of the crucifixion and everything like that. But then to see it played out with such hardcore details, it makes it, real. Like, okay, yeah, this is, and I don't even think he captured it completely. I don't think you can. I think it's too hardcore. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. My poor little innocent brain would probably, explode, and I have no desire. But it gets the point across. It tells you, okay, this is our interpretation of what happened. And so I think it's important too to know that, like, if you do follow the Christian, religion and faith, I think that is something that is important to kind of realize, what happened. And I mean, yes, it is like a rated R movie and is extremely violent, but it's almost, in my views, I guess I could see it being one to make an exception for.
Well,
that is.
Well, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, a lot of people have. I mean, this really hit mainstream. I mean, my wife's grandma, who is, salt of the earth, that, doesn't swear, nothing, which I'm not saying there's swear words in there, but, doesn't watch blood, nothing like that. I mean, she owns this film. I think she watched it once, but she still owns it. And so it really has kind of reached into every, not every household, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's really mainstream for how graphic and violent it is for an R-rated film.
I wanted to get there, because I think it's and Mel Gibson was, if I'm correct, he was born in America but raised in Australia. And it's interesting.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, because he made his movies are so American that they're American and they're very Catholic. They're both those things.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Yes,
and I
definitely.
think Passion of the Christ is, America. We have a tolerance for violence, and this is, obviously in general and not specific. Some people are very peaceful, but when it comes to like sexuality, then that's what our culture is like. I don't know, keep that behind doors.
Yes,
Definitely. But then when it comes to violence, we're like, past the jujubes. So it's a much more. And I think also we find a lot of in Mel Gibson's cinema, his films have been about finding enlightenment through extreme violence. That's what Hacksaw Ridge is about too, in a lot of ways. Is
that's what that's a very
Apocalypto.
good way to summarize his movies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
His characters go through hell, literally all of them, and they come out on the other side transcended. And it's because of hell and graphic violence that they're able to achieve some kind of transcendence. And I think,
well, couldn't you say that that's kind of going on a religion thing? That's kind of what the life is about, is we're here to go through hell and find the light at the end of the tunnel. So couldn't you be saying, like, since he's definitely Catholic, and couldn't you be saying, like, that's kind of his movies, like you just said, is that, his characters are going through literal hell and finding heaven on the other side, which...
Well, and I can only think as an American, I think the reason I like his films is I don't know if that's a healthy message totally. I'm sure there are positive aspects to it and negative aspects to it, but as somebody who grew up in America and grew up in all these situations, that message and the way it's told in his films, it moves me. I can't help it. It touches something inside, and I do really like Passion of the Christ. I like Hacksaw Ridge better, but the fact that it's such an act of devotion on his part, and it really comes across that way, and it's moving. And for me, it's more moving as a story of a mother and a son, actually, than it is as like a religious story. But that whole relationship between Mary and Jesus in the film, that really works for me. And that's not something that was emphasized quite as much because I didn't grow up Catholic. But in the film, you can tell it really means something to Mel Gibson, and it really comes across. And so I think he was able to nail some things about the Christ story that resonate with people. Other things, not so much. But as far as especially like a Catholic viewpoint, I don't think it gets any better than Passion of the Christ. And I would like to mention that I don't think you have to be religious to like the film. Roger Ebert, again, who grew up Catholic but was an atheist by the time he reviewed the film, gave it 4 out of 4 stars, and he said, it's exactly what it sets out to do. It's a Catholic representation of, well, he called it the Stations of the Cross, but of the Christ story. And he also made the point, which I think I agree with, that if a movie was ever going to get an NC-17 for violence, it was going to be Passion of the Christ. And because it didn't, definitely. He thinks that no film ever will probably get NC-17 in America just for violence. So
it's hardcore.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, again, it's like you said, it's a movie that you don't necessarily have to be Catholic or Christian to watch. And I mean, maybe not necessarily like love it, but I think it could be interesting to watch it because it's in so much of our culture, especially in America. Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, like there's so many examples of it in, modern culture. I mean, it's just ingrained. And so I think it could be interesting to be like, okay, who's this Jesus guy? This is his story.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go back real quick to Brian. Looked like he was about to burst when I said something about the rated R for violence, or the NC-17 for violence. Was there a thought there, Brian, or did you have a bad burrito for dinner? So.
No, we'll save it for a different discussion. It's not the first film to be rated NC-17 for violence, but it doesn't pertain to this show. So
as far as like, it's not a gory movie. I don't know how to describe the difference between violence and gore either. That could be an interesting show, but
yeah, it could.
But I guess moving on, we probably hit Passion of the Christ we've beat it like a dead horse. But
did we want to talk about the anti-Semitism? What is it?
Anti-Semitic?
Yes. Like, do we want to touch on that at all, or?
I get it. I get that some people would think it's, but I think you have to go back to the Catholic story or the Bible story, and you could call them anti-Semitic to a degree too. I don't know that he added anything extra that he didn't find in the source material. Now it is awkward when later on he had his little drunken tirade, but
that does put some credence to it, huh?
Yeah, there was maybe some intent there, but as far as actual text, I didn't see anything in the film that was extra biblical besides the Catholic stuff. I didn't see anything extra biblical that was anti-Semitic. Mm-hmm. So that's just my take, though. Maybe I didn't catch it. That'd be really interesting if somebody listening, was in tune with that and could help us see. No, this is this, and it means that. That'd be really cool. If somebody out there listening and they have that insight, please contact us. That'd be really cool to hear.
Yeah,
but for me, kind of ignorant perspective, I didn't pick up on it. So
cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to listen to someone who maybe isn't super religious or doesn't like religion really at all, and their take on the movie, because again, grew up.
It's been called by a lot of those people like torture porn is what I've heard thrown at it. By people who did not get into it. So
I mean, it's pretty crazy. I'll be honest. But that's Mel again.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Hacksaw Ridge.
Or Apocalypto for that matter.
Yeah, Apocalypto too. Jeez. So yeah, again, interesting. Very. I liked it, but I can definitely see how the gore, not necessarily gore, but violence. See again, violence, gore.
Yeah, I don't know where that line is. That'd be an interesting discussion someday.
It would. But yeah, Passion of the Christ. Probably the pinnacle of serious Jesus movies.
Yeah,
I would say.
Because Ben-Hur is not. Ben-Hur may be called the Tale of the Christ, but it's really about Charlton Heston. It's not really about Jesus. I mean, Jesus. You never see the actor's face who plays Christ in that, and it's done very. In fact, if you want to see making fun of that, Hail Caesar is basically they're remaking Ben-Hur. In fact, even in the movie, it's called Hail Caesar, A Tale of the Christ. And one of my favorite scenes in that film is when they have the Baptist preacher, the Jewish rabbi, the Greek Orthodox guy, and the Catholic minister all read the script to Hail Caesar and decide if the representation is, respectful. It's a hilarious and actually really thoughtful scene. So that's an interesting one to go to if you want to see different perspectives on the Tale of the Christ by different religious people and have it be funny, so Hail Caesar. There's another recommendation.
I have never actually seen Ben-Hur ever. None of them.
Oh yeah? There's been, I think, at least 3 versions. There's been a silent version. There's the 50-something version with Charlton Heston, which won 11 Oscars. And then most recently we had another version by the Touched by an Angel lady. She produced it. And I did not see the new one. I've seen parts of the silent one. Interesting little side fact. The silent one has a fair amount of nudity. So
pre-Hays Code.
Yeah, there's an entire parade of topless women in Ben-Hur. So if you have a family gathering that's full of people who are hedonistic, and also there's a bunch of Christians there and they can't get along, pop in the silent version of Ben-Hur, and you'll make everybody happy. So
yeah, there you go.
No, well, I like Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur's a family movie of ours. We watch it a fair amount. I like it because the Blu-ray represents that ultra widescreen, 70 millimeter. It looks great, and it's long, and a lot of it hasn't aged super well, but some of it has. And it's got a great score by Miklos Rosa. He's one of the great classic Hollywood composers. So I think it's definitely worth checking out, along with the Ten Commandments. If you want to get those biblical epics from back then, it's worth checking out. It's not a serious religious text. You know what I'm saying? It was definitely designed to appeal to 1950s Christian America and be as unoffensive as that could be, and also be as entertaining as that could be. And the what do you call it? The chariot race is still freaking awesome. But yeah, no, recommended, but don't expect anything too deep or too meaningful. So next,
is it my turn?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So I kind of was thinking over my life, the movies I've watched, and I've realized I've seen probably movies that are more blasphemous than the actual portrayals of Christ in films that are legitimate, and I feel really bad about that. But the one that I choose is actually called The Lamb of God, and it's a short film. I think it's only like 25 minutes long, directed by Russell Holt. And it's actually it's produced by the Latter-day Saint Church, if you want to find it somehow, or look it up on IMDb. But what I like about this, and Cody, you kind of refreshed my memory. I haven't seen it in a few years, but it kind of starts out with showing the day of Pilate, the day before the crucifixion, and bounces back and forth between Pilate and Christ, just their normal dealings for the day, which isn't normal for Christ's perspective, with the whippings and the lashings and all that. But it's very artistic, how it kind of juxtaposes those, the kind of royalty, Pilate's figure, and then Christ's royalty that, people didn't accept. And so it moves me every time I watch it. I love the portrayal. Mark Deakins is the one that plays Christ in that film, and I just like it. It's probably the really the definitive version for me on the events leading up to the crucifixion of Christ, and I can't watch it without start bawling and all that stuff. So that's the one that I picked. Excuse me. It's from 1992, and seek it out if you're wanting just a short movie to watch on Easter that packs a punch and tells you the stories leading up to the death of Christ. So
I think the big takeaway for me when I saw that one was the music. It had a really good score, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Kurt Bester is the one that actually did the music, and I actually popped that on when I have the soundtrack, and I'll listen to it on just if you want some calming music. Very, very kind of atmospheric and ethereal, but like it's just very, very good. Yeah.
Well, and it gets something right that I also feel like Passion of the Christ gets right, is if you have a story about Jesus that's just like happy-go-lucky and there's like nothing to push against, it's not interesting. But Mel Gibson understood, and the Lamb of God to a lesser violent degree, also understood that you've got to portray evil in the film for it to be an interesting story. Evil is a very integral part of the tale of Christ. And so Mel Gibson, he went whole hog on that with his personification of the devil played by a woman with a shaved head, which gives you this kind of weird, like, off-kilter, what's wrong with that kind of a thing. Yeah. And then also the famous, I know we're getting back to Passion of the Christ, but I promise I'll get right back off. But the whipping scene when the devil comes up and has a little like deformed baby, old man baby thing that looks. Yeah. I mean, that's like, some potent imagery, and I think that's one of the things that makes it work. Is it gives you something to push against with that story. I mean, Christ has to go through all this torture, but there needs to be somebody that's on the opposing team. And Lamb of God has some actually really interesting opposing imagery. Like, so that beginning scene with Pilate, and also later on it has some more gothic stuff that's just sprinkled in just a little bit. So yeah, I have not seen that movie in years, but I did remember a couple things from it. So
good.
So are we off the serious ones? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's move on to some of the ones that aren't specifically about Jesus, but kind of have the symbolism of it. I know, like, some that have been brought up is like E.T.,
which I had never heard of. E.T., by the way, that was fascinating to me.
See, for me, that popped in my head as soon as I watched E.T. more than a lot of movies. I like E.T., okay? But there's the scene when he escapes from the lab and they're in the van, and the back of the van opens up, and there's all this smoke and steam, and when the steam clears, there's E.T. in a white robe with his arms out, and his heart is glowing. And I'm like, it's Catholic Jesus. So it's... some of that imagery is way over the top. E.T. itself, there are websites you can go to that outline this, but it is, in a lot of ways, blow by blow, the story of Christ. I mean, he comes down from the heavens, he performs miracles, he heals people, he, can do all these amazing things, and then the big one is, of course, he dies, and then comes back to life, and then ascends back to heaven and leaves his followers behind. And so, Jesus never dressed up for Halloween or anything like that, but it doesn't match up perfectly. It's not an allegory, but it does take that structure the same,
That poses an interesting question, because Spielberg's Jewish, right? And Scorsese is Jewish as well, right?
No, Scorsese's Catholic.
Is he Catholic?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Little Italy, my friend. Right. Little Italy, yeah.
Yeah, Italian. Okay. Well, never mind. It doesn't pose an interesting question.
You were getting Mel Gibson-y on me there for a second. I could tell.
Yeah. No, I was just... Well, okay, for example, Spielberg, he's Jewish. What's the fascination? Why make a film that is subtly, or maybe not so subtly, has, direct connections to the Christ story? Why do you think that is? You're the Spielberg expert.
Well,
Cody,
it's a good
so
question.
Fill us in.
It's a good question. I think there are two possible answers, and I might be speaking out of my ignorance here, but he didn't write it. Melissa Matheson did. And so we may be I don't know what faith or non-faith she is, but that may be coming from her. And also, I think Spielberg's a really good storyteller, and the tale of Christ is one of the best and most resonant stories in history.
Well, the greatest story ever told.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And if you're going to steal something, steal from the best. So those are the things that just pop into my head. But it's a good question. I would like to learn more information.
Here's my reason. Spielberg's just like me and didn't think of it. Just kidding.
It's possible. I mean, it is possible.
Maybe it just went over his head. Who knows?
I don't know if
I doubt it.
He's kind of smart, though.
He's really smart. Wait, are you calling me stupid? Them are fighting words, Cody. You're not too far away.
This is a peaceful, non-violent show. It's about Jesus, so we can't fight.
Yeah, all right.
But, yeah.
I think you just contradicted yourself with what you said past.
That's true. It's a very violent show about a peaceful, non-violent person. How about that?
Yes,
so,
there you go.
One thing that I thought was interesting is the Matrix. So E.T. and the Matrix, I've never actually seen. Wow. Never will watch E.T.
You're never gonna watch E.T.?
What?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
Why?
Mm-mm.
Why?
I'm not going to ever.
Oh,
why not?
Never.
I need a reason for this.
There's none.
There's no reason.
There's none, and I'm not. I don't.
There has to be a reason. There has to be a reason.
No, so E.T. is scary, and I don't like him. There you go. There's my reason.
I see.
My mom brought it home one day because she was so excited to show it to us, and I was like, "No, I'm not watching that movie," and I haven't, and I won't.
Okay, you realize it's not a horror film, right? You realize that.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's not being watched.
However, the shed is kind of horrific when they first discover him. When Elliot does that scared me as a kid. Yeah.
Oh, in the creek.
I don't.
Yeah. I
don't even know why because of my mom. I don't really remember me saying this stuff. This is all my mom's telling me. But she said that she brought it home and I refused. So I don't know where I saw or got the idea that I didn't like E.T. But no, E.T. can.
Well, okay, we've been battering around
positive,
the idea of doing a game show and that the loser has to watch a movie picked by somebody else. This situation may cause me to go for that idea
See,
at some point in the
I
future.
will win. I will win at any cost because I won't watch E.T.
You realize you're a full-grown man now. You're not a kid anymore.
It doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
You know what's weird is I'm looking at you now, and E.T.'s coming up behind you. Isn't that odd? That's like, what is it? He's back there. He's crawling. He's crawling up.
Bryce, your E.T. is my Titanic. I will not see that. I haven't seen it. I probably
Really?
will see it
It's fair.
eventually. Yeah,
Because I can say, what? Are you kidding me?
I
What,
was
you want
out
to
of
hear-
I was out of the country when it came out, and that thing was plastered everywhere. And I said, I am never watching that movie ever, and I haven't to this day. And I might give
That's
in.
pretty
one day,
amazing,
but-
actually.
Wow.
I know, and I like James Cameron, so I'll probably give in. But I'm closer. I just bought it last year
all
at a
you
pawn
have to
shop.
do
So
is- We'll just record someone saying Jack, and then you just listen to it, and then, hey, there you go. You watch the Titanic.
That's actually pretty funny. That's pretty good.
But getting back to what we were talking about,
Yes,
The
right.
Matrix.
Yes.
I haven't seen it, but how it parallels, I think that'd be interesting to talk about because I mean I haven't really seen it a lot, but
And a lot of that's on
Parallels
purpose.
to
For them, for the Wachowskis, I know that
Yeah.
a lot of the Matrix, they've said in interviews that a lot of the religious symbolism was on purpose. That they cribbed a lot of. I mean, there's even there's names in the film that are very biblical. And, talking prophecies about the one and whatever else.
yeah.
Well,
there's a lot
and-
of stuff.
and Neo is actually an anagram of the one, right?
Yeah.
Which is a title for Christ. So you got that as well.
And this one's even more than E.T. because when Neo, spoiler alert from a 1999 film, when
you deserve it.
when Neo dies and then comes back to life, he's all powerful and all knowing, which is much more of a Christ. And then he sets everybody free, from this system. And we're going to ignore the second and third movies because we are. But when it comes to just the first film, he comes back and he's all powerful and all knowing. That's the most entertaining telling of the Christ story, I think, is The Matrix. I mean, if you're going to have slow motion, no gravity gunfights in a story about Jesus, I'm in.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting, like we said, with when we were talking about the Passion of the Christ, would be to get someone's opinion who maybe never grew up with religion in their life or doesn't really know the story of Jesus, and get their opinion on all of these movies that we've talked about. I think that would be really interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
Because like we've said, not only did we grow up in religion and areas that were religious, but America is very religious in, like we said at the beginning of the topic, was that that is
that's interesting.
America,
and maybe I'm
it's in
maybe
everything, but
putting people on the spot here, and if so, we can edit this out, I suppose. But our buddies over at the Conversation podcast over in Scandinavia, it'd be very fascinating to hear what their thoughts were, because they're not being from America, being from a different culture, like you said, a totally different viewpoint. That'd be fascinating.
yeah.
So, balls in your court, Conversation podcast.
Well, I mean, like in Scandinavia, there's actual bands that burn churches. So it's completely different from how we do things in America. I think if a band, like a metal band, burnt a church in America, that would be very interesting how that would go down.
The newscasters at Fox News would wake up and know exactly when it happened, and there would be an immediate outrage.
But yeah, I mean like we said, completely different culture, everything. So yeah, I think it would be very interesting to hear about, because it's so big here. It's just normal day life.
Yeah.
But I mean, over there, I might be showing my American ignorance by even talking
Which we're
about
proud
this.
of, by the way.
We just lost all of our
but
worldwide audience right now. So
I think it would be interesting, just to hear, other.
Well, can I say that I think that's a really good segue into the last thing I wanted to talk about, at least, and of course y'all can bring up more things, but is the comic book representations of the Jesus story. And I think if you're going to do that, you got to go for Superman. And Superman, at least in his modern representations, has really been hijacked and turned into a Christ figure. Now, he was written by Jewish writers originally, came up with Superman. And Jerry and Joel, I can't remember their last names, Schuster and something else. But and he was much more of a Moses figure originally. Moses gets put in the bulrushes to get away from the slaughter, and that's the same thing with Superman. He gets put in the rocket as a baby to be taken away from the destruction of Krypton. And he's also the ultimate immigrant. He comes to America like a lot of Jewish immigrants did and tries to find himself in the American consciousness. But recently, especially, I'm going to point at two things. At Superman Returns, the 2006 Bryan Singer film, and the most recent in Batman vs. Superman. They really, both Zack Snyder and Bryan Singer, dialed up to 11, as we say, the Christ symbolism. I mean, there's a moment in Superman Returns when Superman saves the planet. He's pushing off this giant kryptonite continent thing, and then falls to Earth nearly dead in a cruciform pose. I mean, it is like, it's giant sledgehammer symbolism. Like nobody's getting away from this. Dies and comes back, of course, which they're also doing in Batman vs. Superman. And I don't know how I feel about it. For some reason, it worked for me in Superman Returns, and it didn't work as well in Batman vs. Superman. But I don't know. Since America as a whole seems to be turning to comic book heroes as the new deities that they pray to with their money, me included, it's interesting to me that Superman has had a hard time since the 70s. His films in the 70s, Superman the movie, Superman 2, did well. But everybody who's tried to follow up with that, Superman Returns and Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel, there's been a lot of mixed reviews with that. And I don't know if that's with the character of Superman, if we can't relate to this godlike, perfect being as a comic book hero, and if that's a problem we have with the Jesus story too, or if people are put off by the over-religiousness of it. I don't know. Thoughts?
Or the movies just stink.
Hey, Superman Returns is great. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've never really liked Superman, though. In my humble opinion, he's washed up. No,
washed
I don't
up.
know.
Wow.
I just don't like him. That's not accurate. That was. But anyways, moving on.
I guess. Do you think this is a good idea, though? The way they're going with this by turning the Man of Steel into the Son of God, is that a good idea, or is that something that we should be going a different direction with? I think you've got to emphasize his humanity more, and I think people will relate to him more. I think it's a mistake to emphasize too much the godly, untouchable nature, because it's hard to relate to somebody who's perfect and untouchable. Yeah. But I don't know.
Well, that doesn't make for it doesn't make for. I mean, this is going to go totally off of Jesus, but it totally goes off of a superhero. That's not fun. He's not a very interesting superhero to me because he cannot really die. You have to have kryptonite, which where the frick do you get kryptonite from?
Apparently everywhere, according to the movies. I mean, it's just laying around. So it's and then everyone's like, who would win? Superman. Okay, the answer is always Superman.
Always Superman.
You can for reals, you can get into it. Oh, the Hulk, he gets stronger every time you hurt him. Superman literally you can't kill him. The Hulk can't kill him. It's dumb. And especially with Batman vs Superman, I was so excited. And then he makes this kryptonite spear thing. No, Batman's not just going to be able to just get a hold of kryptonite that easily.
Well, and can we say also, it's also the
That's
spear
bugs
of Longinus, or however you pronounce it, like the spear that pierces Christ's side. I'm sure that
Spear
Zack
of
Snyder,
Destiny.
yeah, he was also going for
yeah.
that for sure. I mean,
Oh,
again,
yeah,
Snyder's
definitely. I
not
can
the
see
most
that.
subtle guy either, compared to Bryan Singer. Something I think that's interesting between the difference between portraying Superman and Jesus is Jesus is defined by his ability to be hurt in like the Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
That's what the whole 2 hours is about. Is he is not invincible, and his inconquerable will pulls him through this ordeal. That's what I got at a Passion of the Christ.
Man,
is he's just
more...
eating through that because he knows he has to get it done, and Superman can't be hurt. So where's the sacrifice? It's tough.
But
Yeah.
the more you talk, when you just talked about that, I was thinking, Batman vs Superman is the Christ story.
Yeah, it is.
Like if you think about it, they have the statue of Superman, and it's all spray painted and
with false god is what's on spray painted on it.
Yeah, and like everything, he's getting hurt, he's getting beat up, he almost gets stabbed with the little kryptonite thing, he dies, and then you totally know he's coming back to life. And like we said, I mean,
I
Zack Snyder's
think it was
definitely
released
not,
on Good
so.
Friday too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
that is very interesting.
that
Like
is.
we said, America loves their Jesus, and it's very like sometimes it's just like.
well, you
hidden,
notice that
but
both films did
completely
that,
out there,
right? Superman Returns and Man of Steel, they both had a scene where Superman got the crap beat out of him, and he got almost killed. And I think that was their attempt to humanize him. And I don't know that that's not what makes him human, is not just his ability to be hurt, but I think like in the Christ story, it's his inconquerable will that gets him through the pain. Superman, if he gets hurt, he's just like, this hurts, I want to get away from it. There's no like, it's not like I've got to get through this because this is the trial. It's missing that key ingredient that makes the story of Christ, even if, like I said, if you even don't believe in it, it can be conceded that it's a powerful story. And it's missing a key point.
Don't you think that's kind of why Batman is more interesting to people?
Sure.
Is because he's more obtainable. Like, it's more of a possibility.
I mean, they're both
to
bullcrap.
obviously.
There's no way. But yes, I get what you're saying.
But it's obviously...
I see what
I'm
you're
gonna
saying,
be able to
Cody,
become-
but I'm in the same boat. Like, Batman is my favorite just because he's a real person that uses technology. He is strong or whatever, but, he uses that to... It could happen. It could happen.
Well, we have how many billionaires have been on the planet, and not a single one of them has decided to be Batman yet. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting
That's
for
true.
the trip to the Himalayas.
Could
the
you
learning.
actually imagine, though?
I get it.
Could you
It's half
imagine-
tongue in cheek. I'm not saying it could actually happen, but he is more relatable than Superman, this godlike character.
Yeah. Yeah.
That guy would get made fun of so hard, though, if there's some dude that was like
Trying
he
to
would
be
get
Batman.
made fun of.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
he would just Saturday Night Live would just eat that up. Like it would probably be better than Trump right now.
Yeah.
Their material they would have, but yeah, I don't know. I think that it's interesting how, we've just reiterated this the whole show, but how much the Jesus story is in like everything. Like, I think if you could pull, like, people might not even intentionally do it, but it's still there in some way or another because it is so meaningful to lots of different people, especially in America, lots of people. I mean, we have it all over, everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it's difficult to not.
We've just barely
have it and stuff.
we've hit the big ones, and not even all of those.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. I mean, not even getting into like a religion aspect of it, but just in general, it's very interesting because it's part of it, and to turn away from it is just being.
Well, if you were going to make a survey
Blind,
of the greatest literature in the world, too, even if you were totally an atheist, it would be a mistake to forget the Bible or the Quran or whatever else, because they are, well told, very influential stories, and I think you have to deal with them no matter what your personal beliefs are.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been the Valhalla Filmcast. We have discussed Jesus and his movies. Tell us what you think about it. What you think about the different movies. If we were way off base, if you agree with us, let's keep the discussion going.
Or if we missed any.
Again, yeah, definitely. What your viewpoints on it are. Again, look out for the new podcast coming out very soon. Keep in tune with the Facebook page. Make sure to like that so you know when that'll be coming out. And tell all your family and friends and everybody. But this has been the Valhalla Filmcast. I am Bryce Thompson.
I'm Brian Hammond.
And I'm Cody Rowry.
And we'll talk to you next time.